Elias had never seen a planet like this before. From the window of his small exploration ship, the surface below shimmered with colors he couldn't name. Mountains seemed to float in a mist that glowed faintly under the light of the twin suns, and rivers sparkled with silver streaks that danced like fireflies. He had explored many planets in his career, but none had looked so alive, so welcoming. Stepping out onto the soft, luminescent ground, Elias felt the subtle vibration beneath his boots. The soil pulsed slightly, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. He laughed softly to himself. Of course it would have a heartbeat. Why wouldn't it? Elias adjusted the straps of his exploration pack and started walking toward a grove of tall, translucent trees. Their leaves refracted light into thin rainbows, and each step he took seemed to stir faint sparks that floated upward before vanishing. He had landed far from the usual mapped zones, and his curiosity was telling him this place was extraordinary. That's when he saw her. At first, Elias thought she was a trick of the light. A figure emerged from the glowing forest, moving with fluid grace that seemed almost impossible for a being to achieve. She was smaller than a human, maybe about his height, but every movement was precise and confident. The faint luminescence of her skin reflected the forest around her, and her legs, long and elegant, seemed to ripple like liquid light as she walked. "Hello?" Elias called, trying to sound confident, though his pulse quickened. The alien girl stopped. Her head tilted slightly, eyes glinting like polished gemstones, catching the sunlight in a way that made Elias's breath catch. For a moment, she just stared at him, and he realized she was studying him just as much as he was studying her. "Come in peace," he added quickly. His hands were raised slightly, a universal gesture he hoped was recognized across species. The girl laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Peace, you say? You must be brave, little human, to wander so far." Her voice was melodic, warm, and unfamiliar. Elias noticed it carried a rhythm that made him feel calm, yet alert. I'm an explorer," he said carefully. "I travel to new worlds, study them, learn about them." "I didn't mean to intrude." Her eyes glimmered, and she took a step closer, moving in a way that seemed effortless. "Intrude?" she repeated, as if tasting the word. "No. You are welcome. Few come here." Elias noticed her legs again. They weren't just elegant. They were unlike anything he had seen before. They seemed capable of movement he couldn't explain, bending and flowing in a natural rhythm that looked almost like dancing even when she was standing still. Unable to stop himself, he blurted out, "Your legs. They're beautiful." The alien girl tilted her head, studying him with curiosity and amusement. Then, she smiled a slow, mischievous smile that made his heart skip a beat. "I have something prettier. Want to see?" Elias blinked. Yes?" Without another word, she turned and began walking toward a narrow path winding deeper into the forest. The light beneath her feet seemed to pulse brighter as she moved. Elias hesitated for a fraction of a second, then followed. Something about her presence made him feel safe, yet thrilled, like stepping into a story he had only dreamed of. The path opened into a clearing, and Elias gasped. The entire area seemed to respond to her arrival. Flowers unfurled in slow motion, their petals glowing softly. Trees bent slightly, as if to greet her. Tiny creatures, some floating, some scuttling, emerged from the shadows, observing her with trust rather than fear. She raised her hand, and the forest seemed to breathe in unison, a gentle pulse of life that resonated through Elias's chest. "I said prettier," she whispered, almost to herself. Then she turned to him, eyes sparkling. "This is what I meant. Sarding. 7094. 7094. 709094. 709094. 709094. Sardi 94. 7099. Elias was speechless. The beauty of the forest was incredible, but it was not the ordinary kind of beauty he was used to recording in data logs or photographing for reports. It was alive, intelligent, and responsive. And she, the alien girl, was its conductor. He realized that her legs, her movements, her very presence, were connected to this. The forest was reacting to her, glowing brighter, flowing with life. "I've never seen anything like this," he said finally, taking a cautious step closer. Liara, as she introduced herself, smiled softly. "It is part of me, and part of them. We share a bond. The forest listens when I speak, not with words, but with feeling." Elias felt a thrill of scientific curiosity. Humans were adaptable, resourceful. But this was something beyond his understanding. Yet he felt a spark of hope. If humans could learn, adapt, and think in ways no other species did, perhaps they could someday understand and interact with worlds like this. As he walked beside her, he noticed subtle signs of alien intelligence in her movement. Every gesture seemed deliberate, efficient, yet artful. Her legs carried her with a combination of strength and grace that made him realize the compliment he gave earlier wasn't shallow praise. It was acknowledgement of natural excellence, a form of beauty tied to skill, agility, and harmony with her environment. Liara led him to a small pond, perfectly still, reflecting the twin suns and the shimmering forest like a mirror. She knelt by it and touched the surface lightly. Ripples spread, and tiny glowing fish swam toward her, circling in playful patterns. She looked at Elias. "Do you see it now? Beauty isn't just what you look at. It is what you can make, what you can inspire." Elias nodded slowly, awestruck. He had been to countless planets, seen alien life in all forms, but nothing like this. Nothing had felt so alive, so connected. His mind raced with questions about her species, the ecosystem, how humans could learn from this harmony. Yet he didn't interrupt. There was a time for questions, and a time to simply witness. Liara glanced at him, a small smirk appearing on her lips. "You are different from most humans," she said. "Curious, but not reckless. Brave, but careful. I like that." Elias felt a warmth in his chest. Humans were often underestimated, even by other species. But in moments like this, he realized the truth. Human curiosity, empathy, and ingenuity were powerful tools. Perhaps as powerful as any alien ability. He smiled back. "I like that about myself too." They sat in silence for a while, the forest alive around them, as if celebrating their meeting. Birds of light, small and delicate, flitted above, leaving trails of glowing dust in the air. Elias finally felt a sense of belonging he hadn't realized he'd been searching for. Here, on an unknown world, among beings and ecosystems beyond imagination, humanity's essence, creativity, empathy, courage, felt both fragile and incredibly strong. "I want to learn," he said quietly. "Teach me how you do this." Liara's eyes sparkled brighter, reflecting the glowing pond. "Perhaps," she said teasingly. "But only if you are willing to take the first step." Elias took a deep breath. He had no idea what that step would be. Perhaps it was about trust. Perhaps it was about bravery. Or perhaps it was about seeing beauty in ways he had never imagined before. Whatever it was, he knew one thing. His journey on this planet had only just begun. And in that moment, Elias understood that humans, clever, unpredictable, endlessly curious humans, might be just the species needed to explore, adapt, and thrive in a universe filled with wonders far beyond their imagining. Liara stood and extended a hand, a silent invitation. Elias took it, and together they walked deeper into the glowing forest. His heart raced with excitement and anticipation. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he knew it would change him, and perhaps all of humanity forever. The twin suns set slowly behind the mountains, casting long beams of gold and silver across the forest. For the first time in his life, Elias felt the universe was not just something to explore, it was something to belong to. And somewhere deep in that glowing forest, A mischievous alien girl was already planning the next surprise. The deeper Elias walked into the glowing forest, the more he felt as if the world around him was alive in ways he had never imagined. Each step seemed to stir the soil into gentle ripples, faint sparks rising like tiny fireflies. Trees bent slightly, leaves brushing together as if whispering secrets to each other. Soft, humming sounds vibrated through the air, almost like music, though Elias could not place its source. Liara moved ahead with effortless grace, her legs carrying her in long, fluid strides. Every movement seemed to communicate something he could not yet understand. Elias tried to keep up, his boots crunching softly against the glowing moss. He was careful not to break the fragile feeling of the place, though he was human, unpredictable in many ways. He did not want to offend this extraordinary world. "You are quiet," Liara said suddenly, her voice calm and musical. She had stopped beside a tree whose trunk shimmered with colors that seemed alive. "Are you afraid?" Elias shook his head. "No, not afraid, just amazed. I've never seen anything like this. It's beautiful. You..." Liara smiled softly, a glint of pride in her eyes. "It is part of me, yes, but also part of them." She gestured toward the trees and the glowing moss underfoot. "This forest listens to me, responds to me. But not only me. You could say, it listens to those who care enough to notice." Elias tilted his head, curiosity burning. "It listens? How do you mean?" She knelt by a small patch of flowers and touched the petals lightly. Instantly, they glowed brighter, and tiny seeds floated into the air, drifting like sparks. "Not with words," she said softly, "with feeling. With respect. With attention." Elias watched, fascinated. His mind raced. Humans were clever, adaptable, able to manipulate technology and tools in ways no other species could. But this ability to communicate with a whole ecosystem through presence and intent was something far beyond what he had seen. And yet, he felt a strange connection. Somehow, he understood the principle. Attention, care, and empathy could create power in unexpected forms. "Can anyone do this?" he asked. Liara shook her head gently. "No. Only those born with it, who learn to listen deeply, and who respect life." She glanced at him. "But humans are clever. You might not be able to do exactly what I do, but perhaps you can find your own way to work with the world around you." Elias smiled, a mix of pride and determination welling inside him. "I want to learn," he said quietly. "I may not have your gift, but I can try. I can observe, understand, and adapt." Liara's smile widened. "Good," she said. "That is what I like about humans. You do not only rely on what you are given. You invent, improvise, create, and sometimes, in that, you find beauty no one else expected." She stood and gestured toward a shallow pond ahead. Its surface reflected the glowing forest like a mirror, yet the reflection shimmered, moving as if alive. Liara stepped onto the edge, then lightly touched the water with her hand. Instantly, ripples spread outward, and tiny glowing fish darted to her side, circling playfully. "Do you see now?" she asked. "This is what I meant by prettier." Elias took a careful step closer, mesmerized. "It's alive. Not just the water. Everything. You can make it dance?" Liara nodded. "Not exactly dance. I am connected. I feel their rhythms. They feel mine. Together, we create movement, life, harmony. You humans, you notice patterns, invent tools, change the world. It is your own form of dance. Different, but powerful." Elias crouched beside her, dipping a hand into the water gently. The fish approached him, circling curiously. "So, the forest responds to intent, to feeling, not just presence?" "Yes," Liara said softly. "Your heart, your mind, your respect, these things speak to the world more than you know." For the next hour, they wandered through the glowing forest together. Elias observed how her movements subtly influenced everything around her. Flowers opening, small animals emerging without fear, even the wind seeming to bend in response. He realized that this prettiest thing was not about looks or even skill alone. It was about harmony, about connection, about understanding and shaping life through empathy. Elias's mind buzzed with ideas. Humans were adaptable. Perhaps they could develop ways to create harmony with alien worlds. Not just through force or technology, but by understanding and collaborating. He imagined tools or devices that could amplify subtle cues, systems that could respond to attention rather than commands. His pulse quickened at the possibilities. "You think too much," Liara said, her voice teasing, though kind. She was watching him, amusement in her glowing eyes. Elias chuckled. "I can't help it. That's how we survive." Liara nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps. But survival is not the same as harmony. You have the curiosity, the courage, the creativity, but sometimes you forget to feel." "I'll try," he said sincerely. "I want to learn both. To survive and to harmonize." They came to a small clearing where the ground sloped gently into a shimmering stream. Liara knelt at the edge, letting the water swirl around her hands. She smiled up at Elias. "Do you wish to try? Do you wish to try?" Elias hesitated. He had not expected to be invited into this intimate interaction with the forest. I don't know if I can. I... Then try," she said softly. "Do not think. Observe. Feel. Respond." He crouched, dipped a hand into the water, and focused. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the water began to ripple in response to the rhythm of his breathing. Tiny bubbles rose, glowing faintly. A small fish swam closer, brushing against his fingers. Elias gasped, a smile breaking across his face. "I did it," he whispered. Liara laughed lightly, clapping her hands. "Yes, you are clumsy, yes, but you listen. That is the first step. That is human beauty. You do not give up, you adapt, you try." Elias's chest swelled with pride. This alien girl, this glowing forest, was showing him something he had never understood before. Human potential was more than physical or technological. It was creativity, courage, and the ability to connect, even with life forms and worlds utterly different from one's own. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Elias practiced, guided by Liara, learning to respond to the forest with thought, feeling, and motion. Each success was small: a flower opening, a pebble rolling in a pattern, a fish leaping in response to his gestures, but each felt monumental. As the twin suns began to set, the forest glowed brighter, bathing everything in golden and silver light. Liara rested beside him, her luminous form reflecting in the pond. "You see now," she said quietly. "Prettiest is not legs, not shape, not color. Prettiest is connection, creativity, courage. You, humans, you have it in abundance. Sometimes, you simply forget to notice." Elias nodded slowly, staring at the glowing forest around him. "I see it now. And I want to keep learning. To understand it fully. To help it. To be part of it." Liara's eyes glimmered, amusement and pride blending together. "Perhaps you can. Perhaps humanity is not only clever and inventive, but capable of harmony where others fail. That is why I find humans interesting." Elias laughed softly. "Then I'll do my best. If humans can harmonize with this forest, imagine what we could do in the universe." Liara smiled, brushing a strand of glowing hair behind her ear. "Perhaps. But first, you must understand patience, respect, and observation. Only then can you truly create beauty, beyond what you imagined." Elias leaned back against the soft moss, looking at the glowing trees and shimmering pond. He felt a strange sense of peace and wonder. Like stepping into a dream he did not want to wake from. This planet, this forest, this alien girl, it was teaching him something humans often overlooked, that curiosity and courage were not enough. Beauty and strength could also come from connection, from harmony, from care. As night fell, the forest began to glow in a symphony of colors, as if celebrating the bond forming between the human and the alien girl. Elias realized that this was more than exploration. This was a meeting of worlds, a chance to bridge understanding, to show the universe what humans were truly capable of. And somewhere deep in the luminous forest, Liara was already thinking of the next lesson, the next surprise, the next way to show this human the prettiest thing he had yet to see. Elias watched the glowing light reflect in her eyes and felt something he had never felt before. Hope, wonder, and a fierce excitement for what lay ahead. The journey had only just begun. The next morning, Elias woke to the soft glow of the forest filtering through the translucent leaves. The air was fresh, sweet, and filled with the gentle hum of life. Liara was already awake, standing near a patch of glowing flowers. She turned when she noticed Elias stirring. "Good morning," she said, her luminous eyes sparkling. "Are you ready to continue learning?" Elias stretched and smiled. "More than ever, I want to understand this world, to feel it as you do." Liara's expression grew serious. "Then you must also learn about danger. Harmony is not only about beauty. Sometimes, it requires courage, quick thinking, and partnership." Elias frowned slightly. "Danger?" "Yes," Liara said, pointing toward a thick part of the forest in the distance. "Not everything here is gentle. Some creatures are predators. Some paths are unstable. Today, you will see that even beauty can hide peril." Elias felt a thrill of anticipation. Humans thrived on challenges, often thinking and improvising in ways other species could not. He was eager to see how his skills could apply here. They walked in silence for a while, Liara guiding him with small gestures. The forest responded differently in this section. The glowing plants were denser, and the air felt heavier, as if alive in a more urgent way. Birds of light darted past, and the gentle hum of life was punctuated by faint, sharp calls of unknown creatures. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the trees. Elias froze. Liara's eyes narrowed. "Stay calm," she whispered. "It is a predator, one that tests the forest as well as those who enter it." Before Elias could respond, a massive creature emerged from the shadows. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered darkly, almost like moving shadows, and its eyes glowed faintly red. It had 4 powerful legs, each ending in sharp claws, and a long, flexible tail that swished behind it. Its movements were swift and precise, and it seemed to sense Elias and Liara immediately. Elias's heart raced. In any other world, humans might have fled or panicked. But he steadied himself, recalling training and instincts. He noticed the terrain, the surrounding plants, and the creature's behavior. There had to be a way to turn the situation to their advantage. Liara stepped forward, her hands raised, palms open. The forest seemed to respond to her presence. Trees bent slightly, and the glowing plants brightened as if lending her strength. "It tests me," she said softly. "It will test you too. Stay with me." Elias nodded. He realized that human ingenuity could complement her abilities. While she could harmonize with the forest, he could observe patterns, improvise, and act strategically. Together, they had a chance. The predator lunged. Liara moved gracefully, drawing its attention, while Elias stepped quickly to a cluster of glowing vines. Using his knowledge of physics, he pulled one vine toward him, swinging it like a rope to create a barrier. The creature slammed into it, momentarily distracted. "Good," Liara whispered. "Use the environment. Listen to it." Elias nodded, feeling the rhythm of the forest. He began improvising. Stones rolled naturally into patterns as he guided them with precise pushes. Small creatures that trusted Liara's presence emerged, creating distractions. Every action Elias took was amplified by the forest's subtle responses. The predator was fast, but it was not as adaptable as the human-alien duo. It tried to circle Elias, but he used a reflective pool of water to confuse it, the light bouncing off the surface in unpredictable ways. Liara guided him, her hands creating ripples that influenced the forest to provide cover and pathways. Together, they acted in harmony. Liara with her natural connection, Elias with his quick thinking and human resourcefulness. After several tense minutes, the predator hesitated. It circled, confused by the coordinated movements of human and alien, the rippling water, the glowing plants, and the small creatures. Elias realized it relied on predictability, instinct, and raw power. They had something more: creativity, observation, and improvisation. Now, Liara whispered. Elias understood instantly. He stepped forward and grabbed a thick vine, using it to guide the predator toward a narrow passage where the forest's natural barriers confined its movement. Liara's presence amplified the effect, as the glowing plants bent to guide and trap the creature without harming it. The predator growled and thrashed but found itself unable to escape. Elias watched, amazed at how their combined actions had turned a dangerous encounter into a controlled situation. The forest seemed to calm, as if acknowledging their success. The predator finally backed down, retreating into the shadows, leaving the path clear. Elias exhaled deeply, his hands trembling slightly from adrenaline. "We did it," Liara smiled, her eyes glowing brighter than usual. "Yes. You adapted. You observed. You worked with the forest. And with me. That is human ingenuity. That is human courage. That is why I said humans are interesting." Elias laughed softly, feeling exhilaration and pride. Humans were often underestimated, even by advanced species. Yet here, in a forest that could have crushed them both, human creativity, adaptability, and courage had made the difference. Liara knelt beside him, her hand resting lightly on a glowing flower. Danger is part of harmony. Without challenge, there is no growth. Without threat, the forest does not test its guardians. Nor do humans learn what they are capable of. Elias nodded, staring at the glowing forest around them. He felt something new. A connection not only to Liara and the forest, but to humanity itself. Humans were clever, adaptable, brave, and, when needed, compassionate. Those traits, he realized, were just as powerful as any alien ability. They continued walking deeper into the forest, though Elias was more alert now. Every rustle, every shadow, every shimmer of light could indicate a new challenge. But instead of fear, he felt excitement. Humans thrived on challenges, often using them to grow stronger, smarter, and more inventive. Liara led him to a small waterfall cascading into a clear pool. She knelt at the edge, letting the water swirl around her fingers. "You did well," she said. "You listened. You adapted. You survived. And yet, there is more to learn." Elias crouched beside her, watching the water ripple in response to her touch. "I want to learn everything," he said. "About this forest. About you. About myself." Liara smiled. "Then, you must remember something important. Humans often rely on strength or tools alone. But true strength comes from observation, creativity, and connection. Today, you learned that. Tomorrow, you will learn even more. 100, even more." Elias glanced around the forest, noticing details he had missed before. Small, glowing insects that moved in patterns, vines that seemed to sway with their own rhythm, and flowers that responded subtly to his gaze. He realized that every element of this world was interconnected, and that human ingenuity could not only survive here but also flourish if used wisely. Liara stood, her legs carrying her with fluid grace. "Come. There is one more thing I want to show you before nightfall." They climbed a gentle slope to a clearing where the twin sun's light filtered through the trees in beams of gold and silver. At the center was a massive tree, taller and older than any Elias had ever seen. Its trunk was wide, its branches stretching into the sky, and its leaves shimmered with every color imaginable. "This is the heart of the forest," Liara said softly. "It is the source of life here. All creatures, plants, and even we are connected to it. But it is also tested. Challenges, like the predator earlier, are part of its balance. Humans, you could learn from this too." Elias stared in awe. He had explored countless worlds, but nothing had ever made him feel so small, so aware, yet so capable at the same time. "It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it," Liara nodded. "You will. And someday, perhaps, humans will find ways to create harmony like this in other worlds. That is what I find so fascinating about your kind. You do not always have natural gifts like mine, but you have ingenuity, courage, and the will to learn. That can be just as powerful." Elias smiled. "Then I'll keep learning. I'll do my best." Liara's eyes glimmered with amusement and pride. "Good. But remember, challenges will come. Not every predator will be as forgiving. Not every test will be as clear. That is why humans are so interesting. You think, improvise, adapt, and sometimes you succeed in ways no one expects." Elias felt a rush of excitement and determination. He had faced danger today, relied on human ingenuity, and discovered a new way to connect with the world. He knew there would be more tests ahead, more surprises, and perhaps more predators. But he also knew something important. Humans were capable of extraordinary things when courage, creativity, and observation came together. As the twin suns began to set behind the massive heart of the forest, Elias realized that this planet, this alien girl, and this glowing world had already changed him. Humans were clever, brave, adaptable, and in a universe full of wonders that might be the greatest strength of all. Liara stood beside him, a small smile on her lips. "Tomorrow," she said, "you will learn even more. But tonight, rest. Tomorrow brings the next challenge." Elias nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and anticipation. The journey was far from over, but he was ready. Humans were made for challenges, for learning, for discovery, and for moments like this, when courage and ingenuity could change everything. The forest glowed softly as night fell, humming a gentle, protective song. And somewhere deep in the luminous woods, Liara was already thinking of the next test, the next surprise, the next way to show Elias and humanity the true power of connection, creativity, and courage. The forest was quieter than usual the next morning, bathed in the soft light of the twin suns. Elias felt a strange mix of anticipation and calm as he walked alongside Liara. The events of the previous day, the predator, the improvisation, the dance with the forest were still fresh in his mind. Yet he sensed that today would be different. Today was a day of learning, of connection, and of discovery, unlike anything he had experienced. Liara led him toward the heart of the forest. The massive, ancient tree, whose branches stretched into the sky like arms holding the heavens. The leaves shimmered with every color imaginable, reflecting the sun's light in a rainbow of motion. Elias could feel the energy of the place, subtle vibrations through the ground, and in the air. The forest hummed, alive with awareness, as if it recognized that something important was about to unfold. "Today," Liara said softly, "you will see the full power of harmony. Not just between a being and the forest, but between two very different species, working together." Elias's pulse quickened. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, dismissed as fragile or reckless. Yet he felt a deep confidence growing inside him, born from yesterday's challenge. From observing Liara, from realizing that human ingenuity, courage, and creativity could complement even the most extraordinary alien abilities. They reached a clearing where the ground sloped sharply toward a glowing river of liquid light, winding through the forest like a ribbon of stars. Liara knelt beside it, letting her hand hover above the surface. The water shimmered, reacting to her presence. "This river," she said, "is the source of life for the forest. If it is disrupted, everything here suffers. Today, you will help me protect it." Elias frowned slightly. "Protect it? From what?" Liara's gaze darkened. "From a storm. Not of wind or rain, but of imbalance. Sometimes, energies shift too quickly. Trees fall. Rivers flood. Predators hunt recklessly. And when that happens, the forest suffers." Before Elias could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. From the shadows emerged a massive creature, larger and more powerful than the predator from yesterday. Its body was covered in dark, jagged scales that shimmered faintly red, and its eyes glowed like coals. It moved with terrifying speed, thrashing toward the heart of the forest. Elias's first instinct was to step back. But Liara grabbed his arm gently. "Stay with me. Observe. Adapt. Act. Together." He nodded, heart racing. Humans had faced challenges before, from harsh planets to hostile aliens, but nothing had prepared him for this. He looked at the forest, at the glowing trees, the shimmering river, and the creatures that moved cautiously among the foliage. Then he looked at Liara, calm and focused, radiating confidence and connection with everything around her. "All right," he whispered to himself. "Think, observe, adapt." The creature lunged. Liara's hands moved gracefully, fingers tracing patterns in the air. The forest responded. Vines twisted, glowing plants bent into barriers, and small creatures scattered in controlled movements to distract the beast. But it was enormous, strong, and fast. Elias realized they needed more than natural responses. They needed strategy. He glanced around quickly, spotting a series of reflective pools along the riverbank. Using his boots and hands, he positioned rocks to guide the water, creating paths that reflected light directly into the creature's eyes. It recoiled, disoriented by the sudden brightness. Liara's hands traced the patterns further, encouraging the forest to bend and shift around them. Elias moved swiftly, combining his observations with quick improvisation. He used fallen branches as levers to topple small obstacles into the creature's path. Every action caused a chain reaction in the forest, amplified by Liara's connection. Together, they were orchestrating an intricate dance predator, human, alien, and forest in perfect harmony. The creature roared, thrashing wildly, but the duo's coordination held. Elias realized something extraordinary. Humans could adapt to almost any situation, combining creativity with rapid problem-solving. Liara's abilities enhanced that adaptability, creating results neither could achieve alone. "Keep it moving," Liara called. "Guide it toward the river's bend." Elias sprinted, using his knowledge of angles and leverage to steer the creature. At the same time, he observed the energy of the river, noticing subtle currents and glowing currents that could be used strategically. With a final push, he directed the creature toward a narrow passage where the forest itself became a trap. Glowing vines wrapped gently but firmly around it, slowing its movements without harming it. The reflective pools and the currents of the river disoriented it further. The creature struggled, then finally relented, retreating back into the shadows from which it had emerged. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, the glowing plants returning to their calm, rhythmic luminescence. Elias sank to his knees, exhausted but exhilarated. Liara stepped beside him, her expression proud. "You see?" she said softly. "Your creativity, your courage, your ability to adapt. That is what makes humans remarkable. Not just strength, not just speed, but ingenuity, thought, and heart." Elias laughed softly, shaking his head in disbelief. I didn't expect to do that. I didn't know I could." "You did," Liara replied, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. "And that is why I said humans are interesting. You do not only survive, you create solutions, improvise, and inspire life in ways no other species can. Elias stood, his chest still racing from adrenaline. So, this is what you meant by the prettiest thing? Liara smiled, her eyes glimmering with amusement. Yes. Not my legs. Not the forest alone. Not even my abilities. The prettiest thing is connection, cooperation, harmony, the meeting of minds, species, and hearts. That is true beauty. Elias felt a warmth spread through him. Humans often relied on technology, strength, and intelligence to survive and thrive. But this was something deeper. Creativity, courage, empathy, and the will to connect, these were powers humans had in abundance, perhaps even greater than any physical ability or technological advantage. They sat together by the river, watching the water shimmer in the soft light of the twin suns. For a long while, they did not speak, simply observing, listening, feeling the pulse of the forest. Elias realized that humans could not only survive in alien worlds but could also create harmony, inspire life, and leave positive marks on places others might only see as dangerous or inhospitable. You've changed, Liara said quietly. Not just today. Not just yesterday. You see the world differently now. Elias nodded. I think I do, and I want to keep learning. To understand more, to help more, to do more. Liara extended her hand. Then stay with me. The forest will continue to teach you. And perhaps, I can learn from you too. The forest will continue to tell. The forest will continue to teach you. Elias took her hand, feeling a bond forming that transcended words. Humans were known across the galaxy for their curiosity, adaptability, and courage. And here, in this glowing forest with a remarkable alien girl, those qualities had been tested, proven, and celebrated. Night fell slowly, the twin suns dipping below the horizon and leaving the forest bathed in a soft, multicolored glow. The air was alive with the gentle hum of creatures and plants, all responding subtly to the presence of the human and the alien. Elias realized that this planet, this forest, and this extraordinary partnership had given him a glimpse of something incredible. The potential of humans to shine, not through domination or force, but through thought, creativity, courage, and connection. Liara sat beside him, resting her glowing hands on the mossy ground. Tomorrow, she said softly, there will be new lessons, new challenges. But tonight, we rest, and we remember what we have learned. Elias leaned back against a tree, looking up at the shimmering canopy. He felt a deep sense of pride, wonder, and belonging. Humans were clever, brave, and endlessly curious, and in moments like this, when courage, ingenuity, and empathy combined, there was no limit to what they could achieve. He glanced at Liara, her eyes reflecting the glowing forest. Thank you, he said simply, for showing me all this, for trusting me. Liara smiled, her luminous form shimmering softly. No, thank you, human, for showing me what your kind can do, for proving that even the smallest spark of courage, curiosity, and creativity can light up the darkness. The two of them sat together in the glowing forest, companions from different worlds, bound by trust, respect, and the shared experience of discovery. Elias knew that humanity had faced countless challenges across the stars. But this moment, this understanding, this bond was a reminder that humans were extraordinary, not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they were clever, brave, adaptable, and capable of forming connections that could change the universe. And somewhere deep in the luminous woods, the heart of the forest pulsed gently, as if in agreement. Humans had proven themselves. Curiosity, courage, and ingenuity, the qualities that defined their species, had been tested and had shone brightly. The adventure was not over. There would be more predators, more challenges, more lessons. But Elias now knew something vital. Humans could rise to any occasion, adapt to any world, and create harmony where others saw chaos. The forest hummed a quiet song of life and possibility. And Elias, holding Liara's hand, smiled. Humanity had met the extraordinary, and they had risen to the challenge. The twin suns set fully, and night fell, glowing softly in the colors of a forest that would never forget the courage and ingenuity of a human who dared to walk among its wonders.